Hey everybody, thanks for meeting us today. My name is Kevin Lasaletta. I'm going to be the mediator for today's meeting. And before we start, why don't we just take turns introducing ourselves? Okay? Perfect. All right, thank you so much. So before we get started, I'd just like to start off with a couple ground rules and maybe go through some formalities that, we mediators usually have to do before we do any sort of meeting, just to get everybody on board. These are just simple things to do with, professionalism and obviously respect. We want to have as smooth of a meeting as possible, some time limit things that we could talk about, and then obviously the professional conduct things like confidentiality and whatnot. So why don't we just start with by beginning and saying that, we are mediating over the issues between Bob and Sally regarding a property dispute. Am I correct with that? Okay, perfect, right. And of course, we'll get to more of these issues and concerns first when we actually start the meeting. For now, we're just going over the ground rules. And also, we are here today, and we are here booked for about an hour and a half. Is that correct? Yeah, that works for everybody? Perfect, okay. And so just to go over some of the basic ground rules, we just want to remind everyone that in this mediation, we're here to be as professional as possible, but not only that, be mindful of each other and be respectful. We're here today, and we're both here trying to benefit from the same sort of meeting, and nobody here, has an advantage over the other in any way or form. So things like waiting to speak before, or waiting to speak before it's your turn, and not interrupting, and sort of just using professional or respectful language, appropriate language, is sort of, just the name of the game here that we want to sort of emphasize today. Good. Okay, and everybody understands that? And also, just number one, really important, that everything in this mediation today is confidential. So, if we start talking about any of this disputes or anything like that, it's all nothing here is technically binding, and we like to remain confidential about that. So just to keep everything that we speak about in this meeting within this meeting today, that's a very important aspect of having this mediation, and it's very important that we respect that rule. That's a very important rule. Okay, we'll go over this rule again once we finish, just to remind everybody, but we're all on the same page there? Okay, perfect. And okay, so just to start off here, so like I said, today we're here for an hour and a half. Why don't I just give everybody here first a rundown or a sort of itinerary for the plan that we have set for today's schedule, okay? So just for the beginning, we'll introduce each party, okay? We'll do a mini introduction of each party so everybody has a chance to introduce themselves and, sort of get a little bit more understanding of why we're here today. And that's going to go over really quick, of course. Most of you guys already know each other very well. And then second of all, we're going to be talking about some of the opening statements of each party. And this will be on an individual basis. So what we'll do is we'll go around the table, and each party will have a turn to speak upon why they're here today and just a brief sort of summary about their concerns. And during this time, it's individual. So we ask that all other parties sort of respect the party that is speaking and just wait your turn. And if you feel any need to speak, just write down what you have to speak, and maybe that could be something that you can bring up during your time when it's your turn to speak. Once we do each party's individual statements, then we'll be able to sort of come together and, sorry, I forgot to mention, during this time too, I will be asking some questions as well, just to sort of extract some information so we have a better understanding of your concerns. And, feel free to ask me questions as well, but mainly this is on an individual basis, so I won't be asking each party, what their input is on party A, for example's concerns or interests. It's just, at this point, it's just going to be your individual sort of turn to speak on yours, and same thing for everybody else, of course. And then once we go through each party, I'll have some time to sort of come up with some agenda items, what we call them. And so it's very important that we create an agenda for today's meeting, because during this agenda, we're going to be able to sort of list down the main and primary concerns of each party on the board. I'm going to be using the board here right behind me to use our agenda, and it's going to help us to keep on track and just be able to go through this meeting smoothly, and it'll be able to give everybody a sort of structure to follow. So there, however we create that agenda later on, once we get to the agenda, we can decide, what order to do. It could be based on priority. It doesn't have to be based on priority of concern. It can also be added to, addition to what like I come up with. I'll be asking around and see if anybody else here would like to add anything additional to the agenda. And then we can go from there. Does that sound good with everybody? Yeah? Okay, perfect. And then after we do the agenda, of course, we'll be speaking on each other's issues on the agenda. And at this point in time, again, I'll be asking each party to sort of touch on each topic as if we were talking to each other. So I just feel like, I will be taking notes as we go along, but I feel like at this stage here, in order for us to really come to an agreement, I'd like for you guys to be as respectful as possible, but also to have as much engagement as possible. Remember that I am here to help and serve both parties equally. I don't take any sides, and I'm not here to make any final decisions on any party's behalf. But having said that, it's better if each party sort of has a lot more engagement versus just using me as a channel of communication, because remember, we're here today to resolve your disputes. It's not me who makes the decision, it's you guys. So be as engaged as possible, but also maintain that manner of respect and professionalism here as well, okay? And it will serve both parties, I promise you. It will benefit both parties in the future if we maintain that sort of those ground rules, okay? And so once we go through those statements, we will have a little bit of a break time in which, you guys could either gather your thoughts. If you need to take a break, you could just let me know. But after that time, we will probably break out into individual sessions. So we'll have a session where I can talk to each party individually. And that way, of course, everything is confidential as well. When I speak to you individually in their own private little individual session, it's going to be confidential as well, but that just allows you to have a chance to speak with me on an individual basis. If there's anything that you weren't able to share whilst we were all joined together, then we could do that as well. And after that, we can come up with things to put on the agenda in those meetings as well. We'll be doing that for each party. And then after that, hopefully today we will come to some sort of a mutual agreement and sign on. I believe today, since we're talking about a property dispute, there are some things contractually that might be touched upon. So if I'm not correct, Party B, you wanted to create some sort of formal contract today, or at least formulate some sort of, some sense of finality in this issue. Yes, that's right. So we'll have some time to potentially come up with some contract clauses that we will all be able to agree on, and hopefully something can be signed upon. And then once we get to that point, that's really going to be our solution, our conclusion to this meeting. After that, we can formally book another meeting if we feel like we need to, or set up another time which works with everybody, of course. And then I will just remind everybody again, just the basic groundwork of the ground rules that we start off just like right now, regarding confidentiality and anything to do with that sort of matter. Okay, so that sound good with everybody? Good. Okay, perfect. So is everybody ready to start? Good. Okay. So like I said before we get to the agenda, let's just start talking about what your issues and concerns are today. Why don't we start with Party A over here?